guys, welcome to Now That's What I Call a Talk Show.
I'm Jossy. I was going to say I'm Fay.
Well, you can be for today. I'm Fay. I'm Fay.
I'm
just
laughing.
So today we've got a fantastic show once again, joined by two amazing guests. All the way from the USA, we've got Waka Shame Black.
And we will be having a very interesting and I would like to think mind-opening conversation with Adam Oakley, who is a men's mental health activist.
I'm very excited about that. He'll be joining us very soon. But first of all, how's everyone doing? How are you doing?
How am I doing?
You're doing okay.
I'm doing okay.
How am I doing?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, guys. Always. So it's been a really busy week. There's been, of course, lots of headlines of the same kind of things we don't want to see, but continuing. But we're going to start quite quickly and bring our first guest on. And it's going to be a bit of a good interview, but it's going to have lots of depth to it. So don't get too upset, guys, and just hold on for what I hope to be a very exciting show. We're just going to bring Adam on.
There we are.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are we?
Good.
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Pleasure. Thank you for asking me to come on.
Oh, our pleasure. Obviously, for everyone that may not have seen what's been going on your social and your life, please tell everyone who's watching about yourself.
Well, my name's Adam Oakley. I'm from Essex, and on the 21st of October last year, I attempted to take my own life, and thank God I'm here. It's been a bit of a difficult journey to get back up to where I am now, and I think everything that's been happening sort of in the media, unfortunately with Caroline Flack, has sort of raised the bar on us talking about it a little bit more, and it's been a difficult one to talk about because I don't think, unfortunately, that mental health period is still spoken about enough, and it's unfortunate that it's taken a really well-known celebrity to unfortunately take her life for us to be concentrating on a little bit more. And my journey over the last couple of months is to be as open as I can about my story, and if I can help anybody along the way with what's happened to me, how I felt, how I'm still feeling, and the process beyond the point of feeling there's no return, then absolutely brilliant.
Well, first of all, welcome to the show, and I hope everyone was listening. Where do you feel we are at the moment? Obviously, with your journey and the things that you've been going through, it seems still to me that there isn't still the good support that should be out there, that should have been available to you when you were in your time of need.
I think with me, I was very, very lucky to have a brilliant support network of friends, family, that really did get behind me. Regarding a professional point of view, it took a lot to even get to the point to speak to somebody that was prepared to listen to me, was prepared to take a back step and fully understand everything, because I'd never suffered with anything that I thought was mental health ever in my life. Right. I'd always thought that I was the norm, shall we say. And it took most probably a good month or so after I call it the day, for anybody professional to actually step into the circle that I was in, the surroundings that I were in, to say, okay, well, let's listen to your story. Let's try and understand it. Let's try to understand what got you there. But that wasn't an easy process. And like I said, I was lucky that I had the friends and the family around me to keep me going in the meantime, because if I'm being brutally honest, if I didn't have that, I don't know whether or not I'd have had the courage to carry on, whether I'd had the courage to, or even the time to wait until I had a professional person that was willing to come and talk to me and speak to me.
That's what it seems to be. I mean, we've read recently after reaching out to a few different doctors and hospitals, that it's almost a 6-month wait to get any real like substantive help. And for us, like personally, obviously my mental health journey and Jossy's, as the same as yours, if we didn't have each other and then our immediate families and friends, I don't believe I would be here, because it was only them that stepped in. It was only them that knew there was something up. Even though when I'd told the doctors and professionals, it was almost like, yeah, no problem, we get it, but this is the whole process. And I just think there should be full assessments and levels of vulnerability where people act faster because of certain circumstances. And I think it has to be that way, because of course there's people going to be at a low level who are dealing with it quite well but still need a bit of support, and then there's going to be people like ourselves who've been in that dark hole, not knowing what to do, feeling quite lost and crippled. And it is just such a horrible concept that still now in 2020, after everything that happened last year and unfortunately what has just happened this year, we are still at that almost starting point. We ask for mental health awareness, but we need mental health action.
And I think what you've described there hits the nail on the head. I've spoken to so many people that say exactly the same thing, that why is there not something in place? The problem is it's hard. I understand that, because what is that something? And that's the big question. Like, what is that something that we can have, or the government can have, or we can try to change to have something put in place? And like you say, if it wasn't for the people around me, I honestly don't think that I would have been even in the position to get to speak to somebody. And that is the sad thing about it. And I was very lucky, because like I said, within a month of my day, I was speaking to somebody, and I was doing that on a regular basis, and that has massively helped me. But without knowing where to go, or without knowing how to get it even started, a lot of people just give up before that point. And that, for me, is the saddest part of all of this. And it really, really is.
Yeah, it's like you have to reach a breaking point, an absolute breaking point, to actually just get that little bit of help. It shouldn't be like that. So I think that's what we need to try and do. We need to be the one, and that's just how it's going to work. We're going to have to be the ones to say, look, this is not working, clearly. Like, we're having a mental health crisis in this country right now. We need it sorted.
I think as well, sorry to interrupt you, I think a big thing for me from and trust me, I've received hundreds to thousands of messages on Facebook. And a lot of people have the same sort of thing. They come to me and say, I would do anything to be the person I was before this. Now, I know everyone's different. My thinking now, and like I say, everyone's different. I'm not saying my opinion's right here. I don't think that's right. People say to me, I wish I was just the person before all this. The person you were before all of that is part of the reason that you're feeling the way that you are now. So for me personally, it's not about going back to who I was before. It's about me concentrating on who I am now. And I think that's a massive, massive thing that people just need to have a bit of a mental shift of the way they think about things. And I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but for me personally, it's been about concentrating on who I am now, because the person I was a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago has contributed to getting me to the point of where I'm at. So for me personally, my journey now is concentrating on me now, not then. Sorry.
And are you referencing it in a sense of like lifestyle, who you like associated with, the type of character you were back then? Are you referencing that? Because if that's the case, I totally get that. Because previously, before I even faced my demons, I was a total character. I would be out every night on the quayside with all the guys who weren't my friends and all the girls who weren't my friends, with this like overly confident character. And when I actually realized it was just so over the top that it was so ingenuine. And it was so quick to realize that how on earth the people I'm sat with can't realize that this is a total act. They weren't the real people. So now I don't associate with people like that, and I'm quite a little bit of low key. Well, a little bit, not much, not much at all, like tiny bit. It shows me, and I think, God, I don't even associate with those people. I don't have as many bad days. Was that a contribute? And I relate. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my circle of friends that I have now is very, very different to my circle of friends that I maybe had 2-3 years ago. And like yourself, I've always been the loud one of the group, if you want to say that. I've always been, you know, quite out there with my personality. And looking back now, I think it's more a reflection of I was trying to overshadow my genuine personality, because maybe that I was trying to compensate for something within myself that I felt that's the only way people are going to like me, or that's the way that I'm only going to fit into this scenario, or that's the only way that I can have an opinion where people just think, oh yes, Adam, like, you know, he's cool. But the longer that, you know, every day that goes by for me, there's something in my past that I will think about, and I will think about, well, it might not be something that bothered me at the time, but now I look back onto it, and this is only from talking to professionals, where it's kind of like, well, that day is linked to that day, and they all intertwine into each other. Of that might not have bothered me back then, but the more I think about it now, it did bother me, and I pretended it didn't bother me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It's almost as if you have to rediscover yourself after the math of mental health. Like lose yourself to find yourself. Yeah. And I feel like, what would you say to anyone out there watching who literally can't break the cycle that we and you have clearly lived? Because some of my friends have even said, like, oh, well, if I wasn't like this, I wouldn't even have a life. These are my work colleagues. This is my boss. If I don't do this kind of lifestyle, I'm not one of the guys. You know, like, I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but there's so many times I have like one too many gin and tonics and stood outside with a cigarette, and I'm like, I don't smoke anymore. Why am I doing this? And it's just because I don't want to miss the conversation. What's happening, guys? A lot of my friends have said, oh, we can't just like drop everything like you did. And for me, I didn't drop everything and have a backup. I dropped everything and lost so many business connections because that was the type of people they were. And I'm like, I'm not as well off as I was now, but I'm a lot happier. And I think people are so focused on this materialistic, need this, rather than how am I actually feeling. It's like not even reality anymore.
100%, I'd agree with that. And look, social media can be a fantastic platform for so many people, but every positive has a negative. We get so, myself included, we get so caught up in everybody else's lives. Let's be honest. Social media is everybody else's life. You post to have interaction of other people about your life. Other people post about their life to have interaction from other people. And we see posts now where people have got these lovely houses, they've got the supermodel girlfriend, they've got the supermodel boyfriend, they've got what seems like the perfect life. And trust me, the people, and I was one of them, the people that overcompensate on social media are most probably the ones that are actually not that happy with their lives. And I found from my own experience that the quiet ones, the ones that maybe post the odd picture of their kids or the pictures of their dogs, the ones that are more quiet on social media are the ones that are actually more truly happy. And I've got some fantastic friends that aren't even on social media. And they say to me, do you know what? It's the best thing that I've ever done by coming off there. I still have a browse every now and then, like we all do. But my life is my life. I'm happy with my life. I don't judge my life on what other people post, what I see of other people. But yet, here we all are. And like I said, social media can be brilliant, but it can also be such a negative at times. And it can be soul destroying.
Do you think there could be an actual positive online presence like this where people can actually open talk to each other. It doesn't have to be live, because there is some platforms where you can be live with each other and not be actually live on Facebook or any like platforms. I personally feel talking helps so much, but talking to people who can relate and then go like, oh, this is how I coped with that.
Yeah,
can be better, because I see a lot of that like just chattering on Facebook where people are commenting, and I sometimes think like it's easy to comment and then walk away from your keyboard, but if you're like face to face on a streaming thing with like 15 different people or 2 or 3 or 4 having a proper discussion like a support group, do you think that's where it should go or it could go, because there is such a lack from where we should really be getting the support from?
I think the idea of that is a fantastic idea, because it's kind of using social media to what originally social media should have been for. Before we got into this celebrity culture and before we got into this bashing of people, essentially it's kind of what, well, for me anyway, what I envisioned what social media was be about. I think one of my friends summed it up perfectly for me the other day. The world we live in, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter, the rest of it. You can be in contact with your friends every single day at a click of a button. But you can still be sat at home, the loneliest that you have ever felt in your life.
Yeah.
And because we have that, I'm on my phone now, everybody has a phone. Because we have that one little device now, we're connected to the world. We can chat to whoever we want in any country we want at any time. But you could still be sat there lonely as hell. And this one little device that we all have now is making us more connected, but it's also making us the least connected with each other as we have ever been.
Yeah, well, I think social media, it's new, so it's very much a new thing. So of course, like anything new in the world, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to not get it right, and I kind of feel that we've got it wrong, but we've noticed it, and we hopefully have discovered that in time, so we can use social media for the better. We really can.
But is there enough of us? Because I mean, even when we do our videos, mainly YouTube, and we don't really care about the comments, like some of the stuff we read, it was just very totally untasteful, not the kind of stuff
trolls,
like, yeah, but really bad stuff, like not just like, you look like this, it was like, go kill yourself. It was very bad, and luckily we weren't bothered about it, and we just like dismissed it and thought, yeah, keep commenting, like, we love the comments. But is it ever going to be enough of us positive people who see the mistake that can actually make a difference? Because after everything that happened last weekend, there's still a massive level of negativity online, even to when like a show came on over this week on the awards, the Brit Awards.
Oh yeah,
there was still people online slating, and I was like literally, and then obviously the news came of what the inquest of what happened, and even that, like, I think that's the underlying, like, how someone was totally alone, like just completely alone in themselves, yet surrounded by many people.
Yeah. So can I just say something? Sorry to interrupt you. I really didn't mean to interrupt you. With that, when they reported about the inquest, it goes to show everything about the British media at the minute. We didn't need to know any details of how she passed away. We all know that she unfortunately took her own life. I don't need to know the details of that. The only people that need to know the details of that are her family and her close friends. I didn't need to know that. Nobody knew. And then every single day you're getting it pop up on Facebook, you're getting it pop up on Instagram. We didn't need to know that. And that I found really, really hard to read. And I do not understand what the media have gained, apart from a few clicks on their story online, what they've gained from that. And I found that absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, well, one paper had 25 articles wrote about Caroline Flack, in 3-4 days, 25 separate articles. And it's just crazy because the whole conversation is the media is too intrusive, paparazzi, you know, they don't respect people's, you know, well-being and whatever, but they're just still doing it. They're still doing it.
Well, then do you not think there should be like a ban, or we should actually be banning things? But as soon as you say the word ban, you then have the gatekeepers going like, well, this is how I earn my living. This is my, what about, and it's like, oh, so as long as you're eating and looking great, we're okay to push people to the point of suicide and actual not care. And then as soon as they've gone, just the next story, the next person. Like, where will it end?
The problem is there is enough genuine news that happens on a daily basis to report on. So people that sit there and say, I would lose my living, you wouldn't. You would actually have to go further to find a story. You'd actually have to most probably
do your job.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking any journalists because I do know a few that are good journalists, but you'd actually have to just dig that little bit. Look, all of us that work have things within our jobs that might get taken away from us, that they might change. It's about learning, it's about adapting, and it's about working maybe a little bit harder. And I think sometimes the press, they find that what is such an easy story that it doesn't even need to report on it because half the story is already out there in that public domain anyway. To report on something so simple, there is so much going on in this world that they could literally just dig a little bit deeper and actually have a genuine story to tell the public. It's nonsense that it would take a living away from them. Absolute nonsense.
We noticed the other day as well, a lot of our salons in Newcastle have banned tabloid papers and magazines. And when we'd seen it online, we actually went into like one of our local shops and had a look at the papers, and it was just horrible. Negative. It was, and I'd never noticed it before because I don't buy the magazines, but it was literally like loads of trolls just got together and were like, we're going to make a magazine. Like, this is what, and it was
the worst picture.
The worst picture of someone, like,
make up a
like
headline.
this, really bad. Yeah, make up a headline. It was almost like, it's not the people sat behind their computers being trolls. It's the national newspapers and magazines that are the trolls. And that just trickles down because it's like, oh, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's where we're getting stuck on. Obviously, there's a lot more support out there, but even for the other minority of like the men group, like yourself, there's even less support. And that just worries me so much.
I think we, as a human race, completely have to look at ourselves a little bit. We, since the dawn of reality TV, and I've done reality TV, so I'm part of that. There's just been this massive celeb culture, and you look at the shows now, and I'm not bashing any particular show because I'm not here to do that. But there are certain shows on TV now that all of the contestants, all of the people that go on these shows, they all look the same. They've all got the same look. They've all got the same-ish personalities. Them people on them shows are not the norm. They're not. The way that they look, the way that their bodies are, the way in which they portray themselves, that's not the norm. And no matter what anybody says, that is not the norm. There may be within 20% of, you know, the population of people that look like that in this country. And you get, because these shows are so popular, you get young boys, young girls that watch these shows religiously. They watch them all the time. If I was growing up as a 15, 16-year-old, 17-year-old boy, seeing some of these guys on TV with the muscles, with the abs, with everything going on, in my head, I want to look like that because I don't look like that. But no one is telling me actually, mate, the way you look is actually the norm. If you want to achieve to be like that, fine, absolutely perfect. But there's nothing wrong with how you are. And again, with the girls watching these shows, 15, 16-year-old girls that are pressured now to look like that. And again, we talk about things being in place. There is nothing in place for youngsters that then feel so pressured to act a certain way, be a certain way. And that's where the social media side comes into it, because then they're on social media doing things, posting pictures, posting selfies. And that's where in my opinion, the bullying can start. And we as a society need to take a look, because if that show or them shows, like I said, I'm not blaming any one particular show, if them shows weren't there, we wouldn't have it. But the reason them shows are there is because we watch them and they're so popular. And that's why I feel like we have to start taking responsibility a little bit more for the stuff that's readily out there and people watch. And it's hard. It is really, really hard.
But it's been going on for ages. It's a constructive society. Literally 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you had the guy or the woman walking on who was the beautiful one, and they always got the girl, and they always got the big house. And then you had... It wasn't real, though. Yeah, I get that. And then you had, like, the dweeby one, the skinny one, instantly categorizing what's good and what's bad, and who's going to get the mick taken out of them, and who's going to get the girl and have all the pals. Like, literally, Grease, like the movie. Like, I know it's so simple, but even that did it without it being, like it's stereotype. And then now it's literally mainstream because everyone's done it. Now it's done to such a cultural level where it's acceptable to look anyway, and then put that out to everyone as a nation, and then the nation thinks, oh, do I need to look like that? It's so scary.
But do you honestly think it is now culturally acceptable to look however you want? Are we at that level yet? Because I don't think we are. I still think there are a lot of stigmas with the way that people feel they have to dress. I know now we're moving along so much better. We are, but I still don't think we're at that level where everything, no matter what you want to be, who you are, how you want to dress, I still don't think we're at that level. I really, really don't.
Do you think we should ever get to that level though? Because I'm all for being who you want to be, of course, but I think we also need to remember that we've got young children in the world, and you still got to have a level of outside clothing, inside clothing, going on, and you've got to remember, if I wanted to walk around half naked every single day, I wouldn't do it outside because there's old men, there's young men, there's children. That's not really going to be great. But some people are pushing the boundaries to that level where they can walk around in any attire, forgetting anyone around them. And I think we shouldn't ever really get to that point where everything's acceptable, because then we're going to lose the grasp of reality.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, to be fair. I think the people, and again, my opinion only here, I think the people that, like you say, do go out in the stuff that is very questionable, mainly do it for a reaction. Let's be honest. I don't think it's a this is what I want to wear. I'm so confident in what I'm wearing today, and it's a reaction thing. I do genuinely believe that. I think it is a shock and awe. It's a, oh my God, what is going on here kind of thing. But I think we need to get to a level where just everybody, and I know it's kind of this whole be kind thing that's going around in a minute. I'm not necessarily one of these people that's taken on board, like listening to this whole be kind thing, because some people, and I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, some people can't handle kindness either. Let's not forget that. And that's a true fact. And that's not, and I'm only playing devil's advocate here. Be nice to those you want to be nice to. But there are some people out there that truly cannot accept the niceness as well. And that can also have a detrimental effect on some people, because I've had friends that take the niceness as not genuine. And there are some people out there that do struggle with that as well.
We did just a little challenge the other day when we were walking around the supermarket, and we purposely said, oh, hello, sorry, how's your day going? And people looked scared of us. Like, it was so weird.
The only nice people were the shop assistants.
Yeah.
They were probably just paid to be there.
Do their job. And it was so strange. And obviously, she's the devil at it. And she was like,
devil's advocate.
This is what society's like. And I was like, but really? This is the reason I don't go on a bus or a train. Because no one wants to talk to anyone. And I'm like sat there thinking, we're all part of the same thing here, but we're not communicating. And it was so strange that how people were so shocked that I was just asking them how their day went. And I just think I didn't realize that's where society was, that we couldn't be like nice like that. But in many other cultures around the world, that is there. Like
that is
the community is still there in these, in my opinions, less westernized worlds because technology is so impactable.
That's what it comes back. It comes back to the whole technology thing. So I think now, but we are so insular, and like you were saying, we can have the world at our fingertips, but you can be alone. It's the age-old saying, you can be in a room with a load of people, but you can still be lonely. That is so true with smartphones. Like, it's so true. And I think because we're quite closed off as a society, maybe part and parcel because of social media, like people don't expect to have actual human interaction. But sometimes I think we are almost enemies, humans.
Our own worst.
Maybe humans are becoming less human with technology, and sounds a little crazy. Again, you know, I work with someone who's quite a bit older, and he said to me he doesn't understand technology nowadays, doesn't get it, because in his day you used to go down the pub on a Sunday afternoon, you used to go meet your mates, and because you haven't seen them for a week, you used to have everything to talk about. You used to have your whole what's gone on with your wives, what's gone on with your boyfriends, whatever, all of that to talk about. And at the end of that, then few drinks, same time next week, boys. And you turned up at that pub the same time next week because you didn't want to let your mates down, because you didn't have no way of letting them down, for one. And if you say you're going to be somewhere, you say you're going to be somewhere. And it sounds so silly, it sounds so simple, but it really got me thinking, to be like, it's actually really, really true. It is so true. And
but we're complacent now. We're quite lazy. Like we're quite lazy. Like I even know sometimes, like I'll say to my partner, like go to the shop and he'll go to like reach for the car keys, and I'm like, it's like, take the dog with you. It's like, no, I can't. And I'm like, but I would. And he's like, oh, if you would, I would then. And I'm just like, obviously. Because he's trained well, of course. But it's like, there's not enough people doing that, like getting up, getting out, like chatting to people, being more friendly, being more relatable. Everyone is trying, as you said, it's like, it's the reaction. So like literally everyone that we walk past in the street nowadays is living their own crazy reality where it's either confined, alone, or needs to have the attention factor 24/7 a day. And we are just clashing as a society. Like, it's so scary how unsociable me and Jossy are sometimes, because, and it is, and we tell ourselves off all the time, but it's like, you go out and there's no one to relate to. There's no one to have a chat to about like what things we would like to chat about. They're all bitching about, oh God, look at her, and oh my God, she's so bad. Let's have more alcohol. Let's have a fight. And we're just like, really? Oh my God, I'm exhausted. I need to go home. And it's so strange. Like now, going out is a chore. And it used to be so much fun because I used to meet my friends, get on the bus, go out when I was like 17, you know, shouldn't have been there, but I was. Meet my friends, wasn't really like a social dynamic. Yeah, people had mobiles, but it was for me mum to ring, there's nothing else. Yeah. And we used go out, do stuff. I need picked up. Can I borrow £2 and give such and such? Like silly things that you would say to your mum, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm online. And even when I meet some of my friends now, I'm saying to them, like, do you want to come off your phone? And I'm the worst for being on my phone. But when you're out and you're doing something, like me and you go out, we tend to keep our phones in our pocket. Yeah. And we have the chat.
Phone for pictures.
Yeah, phone for pictures, phone for like stuff we need to work on. But I'll sit with some friends and they're just on the phone. And I'm like, you could have just rang us. You could have just rang us. Very strange, very scary.
But that's the thing as well. I think we just don't talk anymore. We've got so used to texting people, messaging each other on Facebook or whatever, that this whole get Britain talking, although I'm a really, obviously I do support that, I'm big on the listening thing as well, because we have to listen. Have 2 ears, 1 mouth, so you can listen more than you can talk. That is, people just need to listen as well.
I agree.
How many people nowadays know their next door neighbour as well? And I mean, not just hiya. How many people actually properly know their next door neighbours nowadays? And I go back to my parents. Like my parents still live in the house that I grew up in. They've both got the same neighbours they've had for years and years and years. They know them, and I'm talking about properly know their neighbours. Like send them a Christmas. I don't know my neighbours. I
Because
don't
we're a
think.
different generation. It's
I
that
know,
generation.
but it's crazy, isn't it? Because they're the people technically that, apart from your friends, you most probably see the most are actually next door neighbours, and yet most probably a good 80% of people watching this today, but bet they do not know who their neighbours are.
They probably know us more than they know their neighbours. That's how crazy it is.
No,
Exactly.
people don't know online.
It's insane. We are so glad that you were able to join us today, and we just want to echo exactly what you said, exactly what we've been saying. We need mental health action, but in the right way, at the right time, for the right people. Because I'll even put it down as well. I have called a lot of people out, final word, a lot of people out on almost latching onto mental health as a badge that they can use because it gets them little bits of things. And that to me is hard to see. I've seen people do it and I've said, oh, that's bullshit. You've just said something that doesn't even make sense. And it's not correct. And I just hope that with me and you and Jossy talking and getting the message shared, we can actually create a mental health action that goes for everybody, and we can be a little bit less mean, but also remember you can't be too kind.
I agree unheartedly with all of that. I really, really would.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to add all your socials to this video, and then once it's finished the live, I'll send you the link and you can get sharing.
Honestly, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I will make sure I'm watching from here on out all the time. And anything that you guys need, or if anyone watching, like I said, links will be on the socials. Have a look at my story. My inbox is always open for anything that any of you need. Honestly, don't ever hesitate to drop me a message. And thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye. Well, he was a darling. Didn't even ask him if he was single. Right, guys. Well, I'm not drained, but it was an emotional journey.
Yes.
And I think it is that something needs to happen. And I kind of like these comments, be kind. But there is people out there who are like, I'm like, hi, how are you? I've said to people, are you okay? And they're like, what's wrong? Do I not look okay? So I get that. But moving straight on to our second guest, this time they're here. They're live. They're not somewhere in a different time zone. You know who you are. So welcome to the show, guys. We're going to bring Waka on. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you both?
Very well, very well. So for everyone watching who doesn't know you, please tell them about yourself.
Hi, my name is Waka Shame Black. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm outside because it's like brighter. My name's Waka Shame. I'm a member of the House of Black. My drag mother is Victoria Elizabeth Black. She was on Dragula season 2. My partner is Dahlia Black. She was on Dragula season 3. We kind of reign in Orlando as the spooky house, like the premier spooky house. I fit in as kind of like the more colorful, crazy one. Daytime, I'm Alexander. That's who I am right now. And yeah, I do drag here in Orlando. I've been doing it for 4 years. I do kind of spooky. I do crazy. I do fun, pretty. I just stoned the costume for the first time. So I'm really just like a versatile queen.
Where do you get your aesthetics from? Where do you think you were like that when you were younger, before you obviously got into drag? Or do you think it's kind of developed as you've gotten into drag?
It's very much, it went in waves. It was like an amalgamation of everything. So at first, I was like I was like a bearded queen, and I did not want to shave, and I didn't want to wear boobs or anything like that. I wore crazy hair. This artist locally coined it as lowbrow, and I didn't know what lowbrow meant at the time, so I just thought, oh, I don't like to cover my brows. No. Well, apparently it's like just very garish, kind of. But, I drew like mermaids in church growing up, and I used to draw like a lot of elves. And a lot of my drawings ended up becoming who I am as a drag character as my drag progressed. And then, of course, my family influenced me in terms of makeup and shoes and, places to buy your clothes, wigs, all of like the fine-tuning stuff. I feel like my family has come in and like fixed for me. But aesthetically, really like mermaids, demons, dragons. A lot of like, there's like an era on Tumblr where we would just like kind of compile what we liked aesthetically. I feel like a lot of that affected me too. So like the very C-punk, pastel goth, like that type of stuff, just very much like spilled into my trendiness as a drag queen.
So it's about like making your own little trademark, your little thing that
Yeah.
makes you Waka Shame.
I'm a Gemini. I'm very trendy.
Me too. I'm a Gemini as well. Geminis. So obviously you have your own aesthetic, and so does your family. What do you feel like the mainstream drag world, like RuPaul Drag Race, and what's trickling over into the UK is a lot of like big drag competitions, but just in the UK based pubs. What do you think about that side of drag? With yours being a bit spooky, do you think there's enough representation in the mainstream world of drag, or not?
I think right now the climate of the mainstream drag scene is it's getting very competitive because of statements that have been made by certain production teams and then retaliations by other production teams. And now that the promo has dropped for Drag Race, we're kind of watching this like this pissing contest, for lack of a better word. But the reality is that all of it is just kind of like melding together, where I think everybody's realizing the things to appreciate in each type of drag. So like, you know, you could classify me as a spooky queen, but you're going to see me in every state I go to at a drag show, like, or like tipping the girls that are like turning it, whether it's like a spooky thing or they're doing cartwheels or death drops or whatever, or even if it's just funny. It's like, there's so many different types of drag that, you know, it's just awesome to be a part of a world where no matter what kind of drag you do, you can find a niche. Even in television, it's like now you don't even have to be, you know, you don't even have to check the list of all these things that you would normally have to do to be on Drag Race, because you have an opportunity to be the complete opposite if you want to.
We loved the show that you guys, of course, are dominating. But what we noticed is, damn, those challenges are hard. Like, they're not easy challenges. How did they come up with those crazy, scary...
That's certainly outside the box.
It's very outside the box. How does it comparison, and why are they so difficult?
On which show?
Yeah, Dragula.
On Dragula? It's, you know, from my knowledge, it's just the boulets, like, getting these ideas. You know, when we have evil ideas, we're like, oh, text them, tell them. Maybe next season it'll be something like, gosh, what was the last one? I couldn't remember if you asked me. It's still 11 a.m. here. But, you know, I think that they just, like, as they travel and as they come up with evil ideas of how they want to torture the girls, they're just like, oh, we would love to watch that. You'll never see them do it. That's the funny part.
I think it's nice and good that it's making them work. I think a lot of these shows, like some of the kind of things I heard, oh, you can just pull a funny face and I'll watch you all day. I think that's like overrated, and I think sometimes you only get different segments, especially in RuPaul Drag Race. You only get, literally within a series, you'll only get like one or two that actually is talented. And the rest are like almost, I feel, my opinion only, are carbon copies. And it's like, you can look like someone, but still have your own flair, like still be you. And I think they're all just melded together. It's quite scary.
You know, I think that's why I'm really looking forward to this season, because it seems like they've finally chosen really niche people that have like their own style. Because I do agree the past few seasons, it's kind of been like, you know, and it's all a casting thing. You start to wonder if it's like they really want certain people to do well, so they choose them as the stars of the season. But that's just like speculating for TV. But, you know, obviously certain people come out and you don't really know who they are, and they do something so ridiculous that like makes you remember them forever. So like Vanjie, for example. Nobody really knew who Vanessa Vanjie Mateo was, and now everybody for the next 3 years is like Vanjie.
We say it.
Vanjie.
You know, people come on and they make names for themselves, but then you're right, there are some people where it's like, out of everybody.
Really?
That's because
you wore a swimsuit again.
so much more involved in TV production than a lot of people realize. That's the thing. You know, like once Dahlia got back from Dragula and like hearing her entire experience, it was like, oh man, is that something I ever really want to do? Because it's a lot. It's like, it's not just a drag competition, you know, it's TV, it's reality TV at the end of the day. Because,
Exactly.
you know, a drag competition, I could do a drag competition that doesn't scare me. It's fine. It's being on 24/7. It's having drama. It's having like production people telling you what they want from you, and the self-conscious feeling of, am I doing good enough? Am I enough of a TV personality for this? I'm not sure.
Would you ever do any of the shows, the mainstream ones?
Yes. At this point, I've been traveling with my drag, and I've gotten a taste of what it's like to live off of drag, and it's really nice. It's a lot of fun. I don't want a real job, but I have to get one. But I'm like really procrastinating it at this point. I'm like, well, I've got my bills paid for this long, so I'm not going to look for a job just yet.
Do you feel as well, obviously, because you are in a different lane of drag, I would say, and I love it. I think it's an art form as well as a character, as well as different levels of dimensions of who you are. But what we've noticed lately is the trans element. So we don't really see many trans drag queens who are still working, apart from how I feel is who's been allowed to be seen.
Yeah, who's been
I think there's certain ones that are like, yeah, we'll let you on. Yeah, you come on. Because they maybe know they can control them in a certain way. In your type of drag, is there lots of elements? Is there drag kings, trans drag queens, folk queens, etc.?
I've met the full spectrum. Unfortunately, in my area, we are lacking in drag kings. We have 2 that come out to our night regularly, so we've just been very encouraging and just trying to get them to be a part of the community so that we have that representation.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people from my travels, and you know, in the entertainment industry, I feel like Dragula has allowed for that light to be shed on trans people and non-binary people, drag kings, and everything in between. And I think that is where the pissing contest lies, because people have noticed, you know, especially now that there's this such a big name for Dragula in the drag world, that, you know, on Drag Race, there's not that much representation. Whereas like on Dragula, there is. And it creates this weird tension between the two where everybody is really just waiting for the representation on Drag Race, like no matter what. It's like until we have that, you know, this might ruin whatever chances for whatever, but it has to be said, and it's been said a million times, there has to be representation.
You're not the only one,
yeah. Yeah, you can't just cut out an entire chunk of the drag community and just pretend like it's not there. I mean, there's a club here, they only cast trans drag queens, and they're beautiful. They're sickening. Like, they do backflips and costume changes, and they've got dancers, and it's like this whole thing. And it's like a level of drag that is old-fashioned, but it's so refined that it still affects us as young drag queens, no matter what. And they're legendary. And there's, you know, when you watch pageants, it's like all these trans icon queens just kill it. And they're legendary. And we can't sit here and ignore it, you know? It's like, these are the people I look up to. When I started to go out and watch drag, it was Sonique Love, it was Giselle Barbie Royale. You know, actually the first one I saw was Danielle Hunter at like a wine bar, and it's just like there are all these beautiful trans queens, big boobs and just like gorgeous bodies, and it was like I'm never gonna be that. So that is like even a pinnacle that is just so far above and just deserves so much respect. I just don't get it. I don't get why we don't have the right representation.
How do you we've chatted loads over our series about identities and labels and non-binary and transgender and all the different labels that are out there. And I'm not one for labels. I don't mind them. They don't really affect us. I have them, don't have them. I like designer ones. Everyone does. But we support anyone. Be who you want to be and rock it. What we are seeing so much in the UK is misrepresentation
Yeah,
of us,
that's like the problem.
and of a lot of our friends who we know who identify as non-binary, and they've explained and etc. But then they have people who are identifying as non-binary, identifying as trans, but totally misrepresenting us as a community. Have you seen much of that? Like, what do you think about that? Or because sometimes I do think, well, I should just shut up and just let anyone do what they want. But when it does sometimes directly affect me as a trans woman, sometimes I get like really frustrated, and I'm like, oh, why have you done that? Because you've made us look like a dick, and I didn't have like 13 different operations and all this to be who I wanted to be. I'm not saying you have to have surgery. It was just mine, and it just gets so frustrating. Like, how do you feel about that? What are your feelings on that?
I definitely learned a lot about, I want to say 2.5 years ago, once I met my drag daughter, Draggedy Ann, who's also Spencer Robertson. So he's a trans female to male, but does drag as a female. And for my small mind at first, it was a lot to comprehend.
I instantly got that. I was like, yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Well, yeah, because everybody's instant, reaction is, well, why don't you just stay a girl? And it's like, well, this is different. So, the more I talk to him about it, it's like being in drag because he just loves drag queens.
We totally want him on our show one time.
It allows him. That would be great. He would love that. He would feel more like a boy in drag because he's a drag queen, and because people typically think drag queens are boys, which psychologically I have to be like, okay. And then after time getting to know him, I realized, oh my God, he's so gay. Like, it's just that he's so gay. That's what really confuses me. So then is where I started to understand the difference between sexuality, gender, and like the gender you identify, and all those things, and how they like come together. He's like the weirdest person I've ever met, I think. From there, it's like, what did I want to say? Oh, I've known people that have been like, I'm trans, and they make like that big spectacle on the internet. And then a few months down the line, whether they get HRT or not, they're like, oh, never mind. It was just a phase. And that's what you're saying. That's what that reminds me of, because it's like, it gives people a name that like, and it didn't like Caitlyn Jenner do that or something too. They're just like, I'm trans, never mind. And I'm like, there's people out there that are struggling, like there's people out here that are struggling to like feel who they are, and it's just like a fad to you. But I think that that's just like the craze, is that maybe everybody is just trying to figure out who they are really and having a hard time. So it's like you said, at the end of the day, I can't really do anything but be as understanding as I can be.
And I think as well, because we're 32, because we're really old. We never had anyone who was like this when we were growing up.
No, we've talked about it.
Like, it was so ridiculous back then. Like, you were scared to go out your house. It was that kind of crack. And now we look back on it, and we hope that by us doing our show, anyone who identifies as anything can watch this and get some like level-headedness. You don't have to take our advice or anything, but we want to kind of give a level-headedness of what reality is like, because still now in 2020, sometimes it's not safe to go outside. Sometimes it's not good to do this. Sometimes it's not good to do that. And if people aren't talking about it, and they're almost just being like you said, I'm trans, and then meh, do you know what I mean? That is such a bad representation. If I was a kid watching that, I'd be like, oh, so it was a phase? Was it a phase of mine? Do you know what I mean? And I think it would even backtrack the actual great success and progress that we are making as trans people and LGBTQ plus people. And I think people like that who do that for the attention, for the likes or whatever, and then literally disappear. As a young person, if I was watching that, I'd be so much more confused.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
It's so confusing. But the fact that we have people like you and your drag daughter and me and Jossy, I really feel like we're making a great difference. Like, we watch your drag stuff and we're like amazed. We're like, why don't we live closer? We could party so much more. And we just like think it's amazing that even as you are spreading that message of like reality as well. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like when we're growing up and we're like coming to ourselves and realizing that like we're a little different, we don't realize until we're like really older that we're a part of something so much bigger. You know what I mean? And it's so much easier growing up to like cast out all of these judgments or like, you know, make rash decisions and then recant or like, you know, everything that happens in the chaotic mess of growing up. But then you realize like, wow, I'm actually a part of this big community that goes worldwide of like LGBTQIA people everywhere. And we're all just kind of lifting each other up slowly.
I think it's amazing as well. As obviously, I think Jossy's like a sister, but I also feel a massive connection to drag artists. Like we're sisters because of obviously everything that drag queens have done for the LGBT community before it was as big as it was and as known as it was. I feel like you guys are like the blazers of this, and you make the best stand and you represent sometimes in the best way possible.
It's historically, drag queens and trans women have always stood side by side. I don't get why sometimes there's a divide between trans women and drag queens, because as much as we have so many trans women saying there should be trans drag queens, we then on the flip side have so many trans women saying that trans women shouldn't do drag. So even we can't agree on that. And it's crazy because look back in history, look back at Stonewall, look back at the Stonewall riots. Who was at the forefront? Who was at the forefront of that? It was drag queens and trans women.
I agree. Yeah, and it's fucking. Can I say fucking? I'm just gonna say it.
Fucking.
You can say
Fucking.
Fucking misogyny. At the end of the day, it's fucking misogyny because it's trans male to female drag queens that are being discriminated against on these major television shows because of the transformation not being as much. That's what it is at the end of the day. It's, oh, well, they don't have to tuck and shave and like shave their body and wear boobs and do all that. It's too easy. When at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're getting to this point where drag, we have, you know, all different kinds. We have drag kings, we have femme drag queens, we've got non-binary people, we've got monsters. There's people like Hollow Eve that get slathered in spaghetti on stage. And like, it's totally different from what we all thought that drag was 10 years ago. And like, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I work with a drag queen who like gets her nails done and gets like laser hair removal. And I'm like, damn, it's like, I wish I could just, and have to like super glue nails on and shave every week. That'd be fantastic. But that doesn't mean she does any less than I do.
Yeah.
You know, it's different. And some people would rather
transitioning is like it's a lifestyle. It's a fucking lifestyle.
And if you're doing that on the daily, that doesn't mean you're doing it any less. That just means you're doing it more. You're doing it so that you can live your truth day to day, which I think is even more intense. Because I take all this shit off and I lay in bed like the little male baby noodle I am for like the next day after drag. But, you know, there's people that wake up and they put on their faces and like, or they bind, or they wear a packer and like, they look in the mirror and dress and like wonder, am I going to go out and people are going to recognize me for who I am today? Or am I going to go out and have to fight people again? And, you know, like watching Spencer, I realized like how difficult it is for him, you know, like there's been so many times he can't use the right bathroom, or, you know, the waiter can't gender him right, or, you know, he gets assumed to be a certain way that he's not. And it like, it's so heartbreaking to watch. And I don't think a lot of people realize that either when it's not a part of their world, which is not really like anyone's fault. It's just, it's there. People have to realize that, you know, like you all go through so much more than like just a drag queen would.
Have you seen the Starbucks advert?
Mm-mm.
So the Starbucks advert is like literally blew me away. Like I was like screaming, like, get in here, get in. It was like a big announcement. And they basically had I suppose a couple of hours in the life of a trans person who was from female to male, and it just kept showing that individual being misgendered or introduced by their former name, and then it showed at the end them registering a college or something. Oh no, getting it, going to Starbucks. Obviously, I'm so thick. Obviously, so go, and then they said their chosen male name, and I was blown away by that. I was like,
thing when we
that wasn't a thing. That's amazing. That is doing it just right, just the right amount, at the right level, at the right time. And you need to watch it.
Okay.
Get that advert watched, don't you forget. But
Okay.
it's so good of what is happening. And that's like probably a 10% bit of good that is sometimes overshadowed by the bad. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely great that the message is getting out there, but it's not getting out there fast enough and in the right forms. Do you know what I mean? And hopefully, by all of us still doing what we're doing, hopefully we can all come together and just realize like this shit's not a joke anymore. But as you mentioned before, the drag thing, even now, like I used to love dressing up and going out. I used to dance around with the club kids who tour the UK and Europe. And I was like always naked, blowing fire out my nostrils. I was like, but then I got isolated because they were like, well, you want to transition, you want to be a girl. And I wish we were trying to fight for the representation then, because I probably would have went in there being a trans drag queen. But back then, wasn't even spoken about. Well, in my circles, it wasn't even spoken about.
Weirdly, our circles overlap, but I actually did drag. Not at the beginning of my transition, kind of towards the end of it, weirdly, for about a year and a bit. And I really enjoyed doing it, but once I'd had surgery and all that, it just didn't seem that it was for me. But I still love drag queens. I'm still there clapping them. But it's just interesting. Like, our circles overlapped. However,
I never did drag. I need to be dragged up. This is what I'm saying.
It's funny.
Are you coming to the UK anytime soon? Are you?
No, unfortunately. Dahlia might be. Victoria just was. I want to so bad. I want to go to Paris, especially. All the drag there is like, my goodness, like next level. Like I follow so many Parisian drag queens that I'm like, I want to go. But
it is an unbelievable Paris drag scene. Unbelievable.
But what about what you were saying? It's so funny because I was like actually kind of the opposite. And I had thought this earlier. I wanted to mention it. Before I started drag, I was very much like I wore dresses and like mascara and lipstick to school. I had really long hair that was like purple or it was like blue. And I think like once I found drag, that was like my outlet to like put all of that into. To then like really enjoy my chosen gender like outside of drag, and I think that that's where a lot of confusion lies too with some people, is maybe they start to feel like drag is what they really want to be, and then later on realize like, oh, I am actually really comfortable with this gender, when in reality it's like I found such a great separation with like two genders in drag that I can feel fluid in between both, because I'm very comfortable with both. So that's just how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then it's like a different spectrum, like I said earlier, where Spencer can find, you know, his masculinity in his feminine drag by just feeling like he is a drag queen, which is typically male. It's just so wonderful that we all get to play with gender the way we do it. So.
It's like a big gender fuck, and I love it.
And that's what drag's about. Playing with gender. It's about having fun with it. It's not really to be taken seriously.
No, right. It isn't. I think that's what we miss sometimes. Drag's meant to be fun. Like really fun.
Yeah, like obviously have the art in it. But the art is part of the art. It's all multi-layered drag. Multi-layered. I studied it at university as well. Yeah.
Well, we do hope that you get an opportunity to come to Newcastle or even anywhere in the UK, and we'd obviously come and see you. And we would just like to thank you for joining us. And also, it's really nice to see that someone so far away from us right now is standing for the same message, and like, we can connect. And look, because of our viewers, we focus on mental health so much. We are in different locations in the world, and we are all connecting. And
we're
that's
using it for good.
Using it for good. I don't know if you'd seen the news recently, but the UK has had a lot of bad kind of vibes with suicides of celebrities with mental health. And obviously our whole premise of the show is to get people talking and keep chatting, and keep listening, because that's the big thing. How do you feel that mental health is tackled within the drag race community and the drag queens community? because sometimes we've seen, especially on Untucked and some like behind the scenes drag shows, the vulnerability of some of the drag queens who really are going through it and almost can't say because then they'll have to get off the ride.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's like a very, very closely knit community that I'm a part of. You know, I can't speak for communities everywhere, but I know that mine, we all lift each other up and we're all there for each other. There have been multiple times where we've had to really like rein things in. It's actually been a very hectic week for relationships, I can say that, and we've all been here for each other. You know, I've had people contact me over like Instagram, just not feeling like 100% themselves, or like, hey, I've been bullied. This girl is making me feel this way. And I'm like, you know what? I'm here to remind you that it's really not as serious as you think it is. That girl, she doesn't mean shit. That person bullying you, they're not worth anything. Their opinion sucks. You're the one that's going into the future and who's going to be the person that you want to be and show everybody that they can do the same. So like that person that's trying to hold you back means absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
And I think it's just about having like those people around you that are able to remind you who you are and like remind you of how strong you are. Because I feel like that's what happens a lot is we forget our strength and we forget how much we are grounded in this world and how much influence we have at the end of the day to be able to say, I am, you know, I'm Waka Shame, motherfucking Black. I'm a drag queen and I'm a cute boy and my family's awesome. I love my family and I feel so blessed to be a part of all of that. And I think for anybody that's like feeling like they don't have something, you have to like remember what you do have.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I've felt suicidal, because I've been there too, I'm like, if I ended it right now, my mom would be heartbroken. My partner would be heartbroken. My entire community of drag queens, friends and family would be heartbroken. All the people that come out to see me every week. I think that drag too, for that reason, gives me like a driving force day to day to be like, I'm really doing something. Like people know who I am. And, you know, if I can just keep inspiring people, you know, artfully, but also to just be who they want to be too, then like I'm doing literally what I came here to do.
That's how we feel. I feel like I'm literally doing everything I was meant to do because I've been in such dark places, so has Jossy. And now we've like came out of it and we're just our authentic self, being a bit crazy, doing the show, doing all the shitty shit that we like to do. And it's like, it's really nice to feel, as you said, to have that support around you. And it's so amazing because we have the same. And as I would say to anyone, like anyone out there who is listening, who is watching, who is feeling lost, just because we aren't in your life doesn't mean you can't send us a DM. And what we'd like to commend you on is we messaged you straight away and you were like, hey, that sounds cool. And we thought that was really great because of who you are and what kind of job you do. You're very busy and we understand that. And as you said, you've been on the road, etc., etc. But you took the time to get back in touch to random lasses from Newcastle. Do you know what I mean? Just that's what we want. We just want to say thank you for joining us.
I always respond. I always do. I'm like, I'm never gonna be at a point where I'm too big up in the industry to be like, I'm not my Ursula. No, I want to talk to everybody. That's like the blessing of being somebody that reaches across the earth, which like I'm not saying exactly I am now, but you know, I mean, we're having this live chat. So
exactly in my living room, in my goddamn living room. Right, well, thank you so much for joining us and big round of applause. We love you and continue being you because you are great. And please let your drag daughter know that we would love to have a chat when we've got time.
Okay, well, thank you, Fay and Jossy. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Oh, love. Covered everything. I had my list. Well, guys, I've been Fay.
And I have been Jossy.
And we have had such a pleasure talking to our two guests. You can see our shows that will be available on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget, guys, we will be back next week. I do not know who's coming on the show.
We don't. We would just like to say, though, before we go, just remember, guys, be a bit kinder to each other.
And subscribe. Sorry. Yeah, guys, and don't ever forget. Don't ever forget. Don't eat yellow snow. Yeah, don't eat yellow snow. Right, okay, guys, well, we're going to go and have an interesting night out, and we'll show you what we're up to. Oh, we're going out.
We're going out.
But just once again, thank you to our guests. We love them.
Yes.
I will see you next week, guys. Bye. Nah, actually. Imagine. Right, guys. See you later.
Bye.